Okay, the recording started. Brilliant. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the very first section of our interview course, Smashing Your Interviews. And these are going to be the first steps. So, me and Kareem today are going to be outlining the first steps for you guys to be securing your offers for the medical and dental interview stage. Now, we're at a stage right now where you guys have submitted your applications quite recently. And it's amazing that there's 68 of you here today that have made it because you guys are already getting ahead of that train. You're already thinking about these interviews and getting a rough idea about what sorts of things you need to be doing to stay ahead of the game, have an idea of all the different hot topics to approach with your answers in the best way possible. So it's brilliant to see many of you guys here today with us. And yeah, that's great. So for those of you who are new, many of you guys may have come across this webinar from elsewhere. Just going to introduce ourselves. We are Medentors. We are a team of UK medical dental students, as well as doctors and dentists, who essentially help aspiring medics and dentists get through the application process. Now, much of that help comes through our WhatsApp community, as well as our blog and guides, where we provide the most up-to-date recent information, helping you guys be aware of what's changing in the application process, particularly due to in recent years, there's been many changes that we may have seen, such as changes to the UCAT, the scoring system, the removal of the BMAT, the expansion of the UK medical schools, which is quite a controversial topic in the news recently, as well as many other factors. Okay. So we want to keep you guys up to date, make sure that there's transparency between what's changing and the students, because it's your right to know because this is a career you're applying for. As well as that, we have a branch known as Medentors Academy, which is assisting you guys in achieving the highest A-level grades because the entry requirements can be quite high at A-star, AA, or 3As, and that can be quite tough. So we had a webinar last week with me and Ibrahim, and what we talked about then was how to achieve 3A stars and really aim for those top grades, study strategies, and what works for A-levels that wouldn't have quite worked for your GCSEs, the difference between the two, right? Another thing we do is interactive workshops for different schools across the UK. So if you guys are interested in us visiting, do let your head of sixth form know or anyone else in charge. We'd love to pay you guys a visit. We've got a team all the way across the UK who'd be more than willing to help support students as well as alumni at many schools across the UK. Okay, guys? So we'll give you guys an awareness for these sorts of things. So the speakers for today. We've got me and we've got Kareem, okay? So my name is Mohan Mufti. I'm a medical student, and Kareem over here is a dental student. Our dental lead will be going through many of the hot topics today. He's sitting with us. Kareem, say hi.
Hi everyone. Hello.
He's our dental student for today. Right. Okay. So gonna cut all the fluff talk out and let's just get straight into it. So this is the plan for today. Okay. So here's a brief overview of what we hope to gauge out of you guys for today. So we're going to be discussing why do we have interviews in the first place? Why is it that when you submit off an application and straight away we're going into interviews? Why is it that your friends that are applying for chemical engineering, biomed, philosophy, all these other degrees, they don't have to sit through an interview phase? Why is it us? Okay, so we're gonna break that down today about what it is. Then we're gonna break it down into how to prepare for it because the reality of the matter is that you sent off your application, you really excelled academically, but now you've got an interview to prepare for. Many of you guys will be in a situation where this is the first time for you guys that you're ever preparing for an interview. I remember when I was doing this a couple years back. This was probably my first ever time being in front of a panelist, in front of someone, and they're just physically grilling you as they go along, right? And it can be sort of nervous and you may feel a bit nervous going into that scenario, but we're going to go into how to build steals of nerve like crazy. So be really prepared for that. As well as that, we're going to break down the many key station types. So one thing you realize is that with the different medical and dental schools, it's pretty much the same thing. That's why we don't really go too much into specific medical and dental schools until the very end of this course. And the reason I say that is because broadly, like 80 to 90% of the topic that's covered is the same because they're all accredited by the GMC or the GDC, which have similar guidelines. It's only the small niche things that are different. So there's key station types that come up time and time again, and we'll see a lot of similarity between the two. We'll also go into different ways of preparing, how to execute your preparation. And at the very end, because I'm sure you guys are stressed out and buzzing with questions, we've got a Q&A panel for you guys to ask us your burning questions about what sort of things you're looking for, as well as your next steps to acing these interviews. Because it doesn't start with you being here today. It's really productive to see that there's, many of you had 200 signups and people are joining as I speak. What we're expecting from you guys now is to be continued here, okay? For you guys to continually practice, take on board these action plans, really build your strategies, because we're going to give you guys a step-by-step plan on how to really push for those offers, okay? Because it does get competitive from here. Right. A quick roadmap. Now, at Medentors, on this slide you'll see is that we've got a roadmap of your application process. So wow, we're already at stage 5, and this is going to be quite emotional for many of you guys who started on this journey with us all the way from the start of year 11. Okay, because for those of you guys who were there from the start, the early days, right, you'll have noticed that we were just on step 1 of this stage, and it was so daunting looking ahead that I've got my predicted grades exams, I've got my UCAT, then my applications, and then boom, before you know it, interviews have hit us. So you guys have made it really far to get to this stage. So for those of you guys who have clicked on your submit your application, all 4 gone through, and now you're awaiting your applications, congratulations. You have got to a stage where roughly 50% of people who applied didn't even think about it. A lot of people that, take the UCAT exam every single year, they end up coming so disheartened that they don't end up applying anyways. So for those of you guys who have made it here and, really pushed towards this stage, I just want to say congratulations, because it is really an honor to have made it this far, and you've done really well in yourselves. You've aced your supercurriculars, your personal statement, your UCAT, your predicteds, everything's on point. Now we're just going to push for those offers, and that is the plan for today. So before I move on to the next slide, I'm going to ask you guys a quick question, and I'm going to look for answers in the chat to see what sort of ideas I can get. What do you guys think is the average number of applicants? So what do you guys think is the percentage acceptance rate for medicine and dentistry? So could I have, for medicine and dentistry, your predictions of what you guys think the acceptance rate is? The number of applicants to the number of roles available. 20%? What, 20% for medicine or dentistry? 9%, 5%, 55, 20%? I'm seeing such a range here. The lowest we've got so far is 4% for medicine, which is very interesting. And then we've got some people that are saying 60% for medicine, so more than half the people that apply. Okay. Okay, we've heard someone saying dent is less hard than med. Kareem, interesting, right? Very interesting. Yeah, I just see Kareem nodding his head. 40%, 25% for med, 10% for dent. Okay, Musa. A third of the people that apply get in, really? Okay, any more? Okay, looks like everyone has had their say and the verdicts have been delivered. Right, Kareem reeled answers for us. Yeah, crazy. Surprising, actually. So whoever said dent is easier than med, guys, you've been proven wrong. Guys, if you've been on TikTok, you'd have seen me make a whole video on this. There's a stark difference in the success rate for medicine and dentistry. There is truly a stark difference. So these are your odds. Let's break it down. Let's just put it out on paper for you guys. Make it nice and simple and receptible for you guys. And this is from the start of the application process, by the way, for the question in the chat now. The number of people that apply for medicine, if there's 100 people that apply for medicine, roughly 28,000 people apply, there's only 7.5 to 9.5k seats available, right? There's only that many amount of seats available per year. This is from the latest application cycle, by the way. Okay, so the acceptance rate is a third for medicine. But for dentistry, we're seeing that it's 1 in 8. 1 in 8 people that send off the application end up getting in, and now it's gone down to 10%. It's really decreasing as we go year on year for dentistry. Fun fact, for medicine, it used to be 25%. So believe it or not, for medicine, the rate's been on the increase. And for dentistry, it was around 20%, and now it's halved. Yeah, it is scary. Someone in the chat just said that. Because for dentistry, the application rate has decreased, for medicine, it's increasing. And these are your odds. Now, yes, we've scared you. Yes, it is a bit apprehensive to have a look at the statistics and data and think about where you're going to apply. But I just want to let you guys know that the people that we're talking about, the amount of people that are put in the red section, in the rejected section, those are the people who aren't in WhatsApp communities like ours. Those are the people who aren't getting engaged in webinars like this. Those are the people who aren't going to be looking at the action plans we've set towards the end of the webinar and aren't going to be making notes, aren't going to be taking note of what sort of ideas to say, and they're not going to be, getting involved in these things, okay? They're not going to be getting involved in speaking, prep, because throughout this course, guys, totally free for you guys to attend. We're going to be going through questions together. I'm literally going to be grilling you guys and really getting it out of you guys to see what sort of answers you're getting me. And as a group, we're going to have feedback. We're going to have hundreds of people listening into your answers, and you will be judged, okay? That is what it takes for you guys to be in that green section of people that are accepted, especially for dentistry, okay? So do bear that in mind. Now, moving on to content. Enough of the fluff talk, guys. We'll be moving on. Why do we have interviews in the first place? Why is it that you guys have to sit interviews and not your friends doing chem eng, philosophy, law, economics? Why is it us that are saying interviews? Well, firstly, you guys have signed up for a lifelong journey. And this journey is, it's nothing ordinary. you have signed up to be a specialist in your field, to be someone who is extremely talented and able to diagnose patients, deal with them, treat them, be put in a level of responsibility to the point where somebody comes to you with the most intimate, with the most private difficulties and problems. And you, even as a medical student, will be sitting in the room hearing these things. For a person to have such an experience, you will need to be quite mature about things. You will need to be someone who can take on board another person's feelings and be able to reflect constructive support. Someone that's non-judgmental, someone that can meet the needs of patients. Because when a patient comes in, it's not just the patient that comes in, it's their problems, it's their family who are impacted and affected and, scared about what the prognosis is. A prognosis is, essentially how things will turn out. They're scared to know what's happening when the tests are. There needs to be transparency. And sometimes things don't go well. I'm in second year and I've been on GP placement countless times, right? I've been in and out of GP, writing my reflections in, and I've come across a lot of times where patients, they've not received the level of care they could expect. And that could be due to one of two problems. Number one, it's a systemic problem, right? It's to do with the whole NHS structure and system. Maybe there may not be a specialist referral available for them. I had one patient who was a 40-year-old young man, and he came into the GP and, he had really bad chest pain and, he was really exerted and he just came back from a marathon. When we looked at his basic observations, we saw that he was fit and healthy. But when he went on to do his ECG, which is basically a monitor of the electrical activity in your heart, we found that it was really elevated. And that tells you that your heart tissue is working really hard. So the GP, as soon as he left the room, the GP looked at me and my GP partner and they said, the guy is a walking ticking bomb. He's a ticking bomb. At any moment, he could have collapsed. I'm going to send him right away to A&E. And at that moment, we realized that for a medic, you have to be someone who's extremely perceptive. And that's what these interviews test. These interviews test your perceptiveness. Can you spot when a patient is acutely ill and they need to be sent off to hospital? Or when can you spot that it's appropriate for them to be put on a longer waiting list for a referral? And with systemic issues like this, sometimes you go into A&E and you appear fine. But that's where the issues come in. You need to know when a patient is someone who should be admitted and when they should be, put on a waiting list. So it's that triaging system. The word triaging is coming back. We thought we left it at UCAT, but triaging comes back. You have to identify when a patient is well enough to be put on a waiting list or for them to be admitted straight away, okay? So safety reasons, you have to be aware for these factors. Another thing it tests is motivation. Now, it is no secret that medicine is a daunting career. It's a difficult one. And so same with dentistry. Medicine will test you mentally. It will test you emotionally. It will even at times test you physically when you have to commute for hours on end with long placements and be prepared for exams and be chugging down Red Bulls to make sure you don't run out of energy. I don't advocate for energy drinks, by the way. Don't drink them, guys. Yeah. So it's going to test you at every single level. So you need to have a level of motivation to be able to get through these barriers, okay? because for every stage of the process you will be tested with different things, okay? So throughout the different stations they're going to grill you and make sure that you are the perfect candidate across all domains, including your professionalism, how you conduct yourself. The patient-doctor relationship is something that is heavily valued in society because how doctors are seen in the eyes of the general public determines how well patients and how comfortable they are with expressing their problems. If people, the general public, aren't comfortable with expressing their problems to doctors, what happens? Well, then the relationship deteriorates and we can't deal with them in the best way. Okay. And then another thing is communication. A lot of the reason why we have interviews is because there's too many academic warriors here, right? All these academic warriors, which many of you guys may be, are people who are just really good with their mark scheme points, their mark scheme warriors. They're really good academically, but can they get across a point to a patient effectively? Can they, understand the difficulties of someone, be able to take them on board, give them an action plan? Can they break bad news? Let's say you get a report and, it's okay, guys, you don't have to bait me out there. I'm a bit of a marketing warrior. But can you, when you have bad news in front of you, can you get across to a patient in a nice way to the point where you're not shocking them with the fact that they have cancer, for example, right? So you need to be able to get these skills across. Another thing is empathy. Now, I'm just briefly covering over this, but empathy is essentially being able to realize that the patient in front of you is vulnerable. And, emotional intelligence is literally half of the job. There's obviously you knowing how to deal with patients, but then there's emotional intelligence that comes with it, right? So Kareem now is going to go through the step-by-step process you need to prepare for your interview journey and what the next few months of your essentially journey is going to look like. Okay, so Kareem, if you want to take over.
Right. Thank you, Mufti. Very good start to the interview webinar. It's so lovely to see many of you. Um, so these interviews, like Mufti has said, are very important because they do screen people off, and this is where they catch you out. Okay. They know, is this person right to be my doctor or dentist? That's literally what some of the mark schemes say. It says, can this person be my dentist? And if they don't think this person can be my dentist or my doctor, then they're not gonna give you a place at that medical or dental school. So it's so important to have that maturity, to have that confidence, to have that charisma, because grades is only half of the equation. Sure, you can get that offer, that's fine, but 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 you need to prove that actually you're a well-rounded applicant. You have emotional intelligence, you have empathy, you have communication skills, you can actually speak to patients. And that's what these interviews are for. So many of you, okay, submitted your applications this week, some of you last week or the weeks before. So interviews are around the corner. They're going to be coming in the next few weeks, hopefully. When UCAT sends off whatever UCAT you got to the unis, you should be hopefully expecting some invites. Now, I know all of you are probably refreshing your phone emails every 5 seconds, trying to see, have I got an interview yet? They will come. They will come, hopefully, because you're part of this community. And if you're not, do be sure to join at the end. Now, with the interview preparation journey, we have 3 steps, 3 core steps, right? So a lot of you won't really know the knowledge. You might have some ethical knowledge, um, and some idea of, okay, what can you do, okay, with hot topics and ethics and from the UCAT and all that. But the important thing is you gain that preparation first, that initial knowledge from reading books, from reading articles, from watching videos. That videos bit is quite crucial. It depends on the type of learner you are. Are you someone who reads, or are you someone who watches or listens to a podcast maybe? There's tons of things. Their second step then is for, oh, okay. The second step is for practicing, speaking aloud, speaking in front of mirror, speaking to friends and family, because you can have all the knowledge in your head, but if you can't, practice it in front of people and use your hands and your non-verbal elements, none of it is really going to matter. And the third step is execution. Now, that's beyond practicing. That's actually in the exam style sort of mock MMI. So there's 2 types of interviews, the majority of which are MMIs, multiple mini interviews, and some are panel, but they're decreasing and decreasing. So, if you can practice one-to-one with someone, any practice is good, with a doctor or a dentist, and some mock MMIs as well. So, how do you actually prepare specifically? All right, so you gain some of that initial knowledge by reading some books. So, I actually got this on my bookshelf right here. I got this book, which was quite useful, Multiple Mini Interviews for UK Dental School. It was by Marion Cole. I recommend her book. It's quite good. It had a lot of knowledge. I read it all. But reading is only, half the mission. You can go on the British Medical Journal, you can go on the British Dental Journal, you can go read some articles as well on the Medic portal, the UK CAT people. We've got some articles coming up as well pretty soon over the next few weeks on our website, medentors.co.uk/blog. You can also go read BBC Health and all sorts of things. But the important thing is, okay, gain that initial knowledge. There's different types of stations, and we'll go over those different types of stations of what you need to know. But essentially, that's how it is. And another thing that's quite useful is you should be speaking to as many current medical or dental students and doctors and dentists as possible. Know what the problems are, what are the issues, what's going on with public health, what's going on with technology, what's going on with policy, what are the politicians doing, what's the 5-year NHS plan, things like this. Learn about these things across medicine and dentistry. The content is quite similar for the large part, for 70 80%. It's quite similar. There's only that 10-20% difference where there's different things like, with medics, you have to know about abortion, euthanasia. With dentists, you don't really need to know as much, but you need to know about things like UDAs and the dental contract. So collect that information, and we would say keep it in a document, but don't write notes. That's only half the mission. Because myself and Mufti, we wrote notes and notes and notes, but it doesn't matter if you can't speak to the person in the real thing. So have that knowledge, prepare that knowledge, and I'd say gather it all in a document as well. Mufti, have you got anything else to add?
Yeah, guys. So the other day I was at a school, right? And me and Kareem were doing one of our school visits. And I had a student ask me in year 13, so same age as you guys, same point in the application cycle. And he said, I was on TikTok the other day and I'm thinking, how am I going to balance this alongside my A levels? Because this guy on TikTok was saying, I have to learn the NHS Mental Health Capacity Act of 2010. I've got to learn the Equality Act, the different rules of the duty of candor, and all of these things. And was saying, what are your tips for balancing this alongside A levels? And how would you go about your preparation as well as, preparing for mocks, not falling behind? I'm already behind because the UCAT took so much of my summer. You guys are in the same, I'm assuming you guys are in a similar boat right now. And I looked at her and I said, that's just misinformation. Because believe me, people will tell you, read this article, read our article over here, learn this act, learn these keywords, and you have to know these statistics. You have to know that 52% of the UK is affected by obesity, not 53%. You'll be assessed on these things. No, it's just false. Because the truth of the matter is, there is a small domain of hot topics that you have to generally be aware of, which don't worry, we will go through in detail in our guide that will be free for you guys to access coming out very soon, as well as the rest of this webinar series, which we'll be doing over the course of the next few months. Okay, we'll be going through all of the key hot topics and the points that you need to be aware of. In terms of actual learning, you can probably over the course of 2 to 3 days, sorry, not over the course of 2 to 3 days, over the course of 2 months, be able to understand all of it and comprehend it. I'd say it's probably maximum 15 hours of learning content that's available. And the majority of it you can find on the sources we've listed over here. UKCAT people, this is the one I used. It was excellent. The book Kareem's just put in the chat right now for dentistry, excellent. The Medic portal has really good guides. They're just a bit outdated. UKCAT people is a bit more updated. BBC Health articles, always keep up to date with those. Okay, so one tip I'd take from this is that you have to be up to date with some of the latest information because you can bring it up in your interview. You can say, "Oh, this is an example of health tech innovation," or "This is an example I read about this." Make yourself seem like someone who is passionate about the career because you're looking at what's changing. Someone that gives an interview and says things along the sides of, "Oh, they give generic ideas about medicine," or they say something like, "Oh, I read about this hot topic and this is what came across." Well, you need to be someone, when you give an answer, there has to be more volume and more depth to it. You have to be someone who can give suggestions like, "Oh, I saw this gene therapy. And actually, I also read about this. And I thought it can be applied to this and used in this sense." This is something you get done with in your practice, okay? So that is one bit of advice I'd give with the preparation side of things.
That's absolutely right. People get bogged down on learning the statistics. So they're not going to ask you what percentage of people have obesity in the country. They're not going to ask that sort of thing. But what they will ask is, about the obesity crisis, the epidemic crisis. How can we solve it? What the issues in the NHS are? Things like that. Things to have general awareness about. Right. So the second step is practicing. Now, all the knowledge, like we've said, is worthless unless you are able to phrase and structure it properly. Now, practice in front of a mirror. Literally, I have a mirror and just practice in front. Just use your nonverbal and body language. Practice with friends. Practice in a group as well. This is something me and Mufti did a few years ago now. A few years ago, was it? Yeah. So we sat in school. We sat in the library and essentially me and him just had some questions and practiced and rehearsed, and we gave each other actual realistic feedback. Tell your friends, make a little interview group now, over the next few weeks. Just work with each other and just see, okay, that person's actually doing some really good stuff. I should learn from her. That person's doing a lot of has learned a lot of knowledge. Maybe I should ask him where he got his knowledge from. Work together and use our community as well. use the people around you in school, but you've got that opportunity in the community. A lot of you are friends as well. We've really loved seeing that a lot of you have built friendships and sort of excel together. So practice in a group. And something that's really important, oh, oh, sorry guys. Something that's really important is, you know, have I'm just disabling that. Have the five factors of speech. So a lot of people, right, don't know this, but there's this guy called Vin Yang, okay? And he uses five factors of speech. I'm obsessed with his content. And it's something I'm trying to emulate in the webinars and in the school speeches. It's something I'm working on, but it's something that I think you guys should also work on. It's just my reflection as well. I was practicing with someone, and I was honest with them. I told them, listen, you need to work on your tone. You need to work on your voice. You need to work on using these factors. It's so important. Using things like pitch. You can go all the way up and all the way down with your pitch. You can go really quietly and you can speak really loudly. And you can use different speeds as well and the tone. And also, what you can do is use pauses. Now, I see a lot of people do this, but they use it wrong. They use the pauses long. They use long pauses, like really, like this. It just gets uncomfortable. So be able to use those five factors of speech. And that's just something personal I wanted to give you guys when I was making this webinar, is that listen to this guy, Ving Yang, listen to people who listen to people who give speeches and see what are they saying in words, because a lot of you might have not had public speaking experience. So make sure, you look, am I monotone? Like be realistic with yourself. Am I monotone? Ask the people around you and see, okay, how can I change things? Because you got to entertain the interviewer. They see a lot of different things. They see hundreds of interviews, right? And if you stand out and if everyone's got the same knowledge, right? How are you going to stand out? Sure, you can have unique stories or unique anecdotes or unique reflections or whatever. But if you can, emulate yourself in a certain way, in a confident way, using these five factors of speech, then you're ahead of the game. You're ahead of everyone else. But yeah, Mufti, do you want to add anything?
Yeah. So another key point is, and this reflects onto the previous slide a little bit. When you're doing your preparation, a lot of people they feel that, when I go into my practice, I should still be making notes and writing notes. One thing I'd ask you guys to do is if you have a Word note and a PDF note or Excel sheet or a Notion or whatever sort of system you use to make written notes about what sort of things you want to say in interviews, leave it off for the purpose of your practice because a lot of people they memorize their answers. Now, memorizing answers is really good towards the start when you want to clarify in your head because maybe you're not as comfortable with your verbal communication speaking skills that you want to sort of have a system of having an idea of what sort of things you want to get across in a short period of time. Because MMIs, the way they do things is quite short and snappy. You'll be in a station, sent to another, station after another. You have to be concise in your speech. You can't waffle on for long. So a lot of people, what they do is they like to keep their notes. However, when you get to this practice stage, you just have to be natural. You have to let your notes go. You have to let the structure that's in your head go and just be yourself. Because as long as you're hitting the key points, as long as you're directly answering that question, as long as you are directly answering that question and hitting the points that the examiner is looking for. From then on, it's just about how you get it across. It's from how genuine you sound. Do you sound like a robot? Are you using these five factors of speech? Or are you just memorizing something and reverbalizing something off the top of your head? So to be able to differentiate the two, you have to be a bit more individualized with your approach. And that's the key tip I'd give for your practice and preparation.
The final thing to do is to execute. Do mock MMIs. We're going to have some of our own mock MMIs over the next few weeks. We've also got our interview course that Mufti will be speaking about later. So you can join that and utilize our mock MMIs. We also recommend you, if you know any doctors or dentists or medical or dental students, I personally reached out to a couple when I was applying. I was just like, can we hop on a 40-minute call and can I just practice interview questions with you? And they prepared some interview questions. It doesn't take that long. And they gave me some nice feedback, and that helped me quite a lot. So do use that opportunity if you know anyone in your circles or anyone around you. And something that's so important is to constantly reflect. Okay, how can I be more unique? What can I do better? What can I do better? What can I do better? And it's about the progress. It's not about comparing yourself with each other, with your friends, with someone else. Just see, okay, where have I been and where have I ended up? And you should go in an exponential sort of curve. And again, use the five factors of speech. I mentioned this previously, but you gotta make sure you're not boring the interviewer. This part is really, consolidating the practice and also the preparation of the knowledge and putting them together and executing them in exam styles, really, with mock MMIs and serious people and professional people that you're going to be doing the one-to-ones with. Mufti, do you have anything to add so far?
Yeah, one thing I just add to this is that when you're in this execution stage, so you've done your preparation, you've got all the knowledge in your head, you've had a bit of practice with your friends, now you're going to the execute phase. Now, you can simulate this yourself if you want. What I firstly started off with doing is that I'd take my notes down and have an idea of the topic. So that in my first month, for my general structure, I just took my notes. Then towards the second month slash third month, I would just get my two little brothers downstairs and say, "You two ask me questions. I'll speak and there's no timer. Just listen to me speak and give me a reflection on how you think I'm going. Do you think I'm taking too many pauses? Do you think there's too many ums and ahs? Do you think that my answers don't make sense anymore? Do you think I'm drifting off topic? Be specific with me. Don't mess around and tell me what you guys are thinking, okay? Because they need to be direct. The feedback you need to be receiving needs to be personalized and direct. These two key things. And it needs to be relevant to whatever you're answering. Right. When you get to this execution stage, that's where the time pressure comes in. One thing many people don't realize is that when you're in an MMI, and I'll cover this in the later slides, to which will tell you about the structure of what an MMI is like. You're going to get cut off. They've got buzzers, and you will be mid-sentence, and they'll say, "Thank you very much, off to the next station." The 2-minute reading time will start, and straight away, you'll be thrown into another room. So whatever case you had in the back of your mind, you will have forgotten about it. You can totally forget about what you were just answering because now you've got another thing to focus on, right? And that is the nature of MMIs. You're going to get cut off by a buzzer towards the end. So you need to be able to structure your answers to a point where you can say something and get it across. So many people, it's all about pacing, really. And if you want to best pace yourself, you have to ask someone, a friend, to sit in front of you, time you for 5 minutes in your speech and say, "Did I hit this point tick? Did I hit this point tick? Did I hit this point? Was my communication good? Did I come across as nervous? Was my hands moving around too much or was I well composed? Was I sitting straight in front of you? Was I maintaining the right level of eye contact? Did I mention these key NHS values? Did I give suggestions? Did I use ums and ahs? Really be harsh on yourself because we saw what the success rates were in some of the previous slides. The acceptance rate can be as low as 9 to 10% for dentistry, okay? So you will be grilled to a T, and if you can't replicate a situation under pressure, you're going to find it difficult. So that's why execution, I would highly recommend getting someone who's an expert in the field. If it's a doctor, if it's a dentist, if you're friends with a medical or dental student, ask them and say, "Hey, can I just have a 20-minute call? You ask me questions, you time me, I practice, give me realistic feedback. Can you tell me a bit about what your day-to-day life is like so I can think about, what sort of things are looked for in a medical student?" So you will be put in that situation. And with the execution, that's where you have to put yourself in pressure. The thing is, I'll tell you guys a fun fact last year, and it's got to do with a bit of this course that you guys are part of right now. What we have toward the end is questions. Every single time we teach a topic, we drop questions for you guys to practice. Now, there were roughly, 80, 90 people, however many people are in today, sitting there in the room. And at the very start of the course, I asked you guys last year, put your hands up if you want to have a go at this question. Now, nobody put their hands up at the start. We were waiting there for solid 3 minutes and we just had to pick someone, didn't we, Kareem? We had to pick someone to answer the question. And it's understandable because to answer a question in front of 87 people that we've got right now, you'd be nervous. But the same people that put themselves into the situations were the ones a few months later that were messaging me, "I got an offer at this uni, I got an offer here, thank you so much. And it's really heartwarming to receive that feedback because you just have to put yourself out there. If it means, putting yourself out there to do a speech in front of the school, go for it. If it means speaking in assembly, go for it. These are experiences that, you want to build over time. So whatever sort of experience you can get with speaking to people, being sociable, getting ideas across, suggesting things, whatever sort of tips you guys have for this in order to better improve yourself, use it. The next point I want to give for the execution phase is to treat it like a team sport. Now, there is too much gatekeeping culture within the medical and dental field. Now, when I remember in my school, I'm not even going to lie, there was a lot of gatekeeping going on because, you know, everyone's worked really hard, rightfully so, in their interviews to get to this stage, right? You've got crazy high UCATs, or you've applied strategically and pick the universities that are accepting you. People are getting interviews. Everyone's getting really happy now. We're getting to that stage, and from then on, it's just the offer, A levels, and then chill, right? So when people are asking, oh, where'd you get help from? Or what sort of websites should I use? Can I practice with you? A lot of people, they don't want to help out. I remember asking one of my friends uh, um, about some tips for interviews, and he goes, oh, yeah, I've got a really niche answer, but I'm not going to tell you because we've got interviews at the same uni. And I just think, look, in hindsight, looking back, that was probably not the right thing for him to do at the time because when I look at it, a university will probably interview, let's say, I don't know, 1,000 people, and they will have a spot for, I don't know, let's say 300 people, and they'll give out 300 offers. So the chance of you saying something that's going to affect someone else's score is not going to be that high. Rather, if you're able to sit down with someone, do a bit of practice, one thing you'll find is putting yourself in the interviewer's shoes. So being the one who marks your friend or times your friend, analyzes their score, you're putting yourself in the shoes of the person who's listening. So you will see what sort of skills, what sort of mindset, and what sort of, non-verbal and verbal communication is required of someone to stand out. Because if you sit with, let's say, three, four different friends, and you see all three of them have different approaches to the interview, you'll see, hang on a minute, I can, copy a bit of the things they do well and maybe avoid a bit of what they do wrong and implement it to my own answers. And just like that, you make yourself a multi-dimensional applicant in the interviews. So it is really a team sport. Me and Kareem were at it from day one. We were locked in, guys, and we were really getting that practice in. And one thing we realized is that our answers sounded a lot more multi-dimensional from the sense that we were covering more aspects of the interviewer's requirements. So definitely treat it like a team sport.
Right. So advanced tips. Dress formally. Now that's just given. That's just an interview that you've got an interview. So why would you dress formally? It's the first ever time you're going to see that person, and probably the last time. So you got to make a good impression. Something that's interesting to hear is a lot of people think that they need to be a doctor or a dentist to have all this knowledge, but need to you don't need to be a doctor or a dentist like to have all this knowledge in your head and be like, oh, I know this disease and this and that and this is perfect. No, they don't expect someone who's perfect. You're at the interview to learn to get into medicine and dentistry. So switch your mindset a little bit and do be realistic as well with the practice process because it is competitive. So don't get cocky and be like, okay, I'm fine. I'm doing well. No, 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 no. If you are sort of thinking that and you're like, oh, I'll be fine. There were a lot of people who got a really good UCAT, got 4 interviews and got 0 offers because they were too cocky, they were too confident. They were like, oh, I'll be fine in interviews. I'm a natural speaker. No, you need to practice. You need to practice. That's what I was thinking. I realized I got shafted. Okay, the interviews is harder than you might think. Particularly some unis that I won't say. But the other thing as well is to have those unique anecdotes and those stories in your mind, just think, okay, 5 to 10 stories that you can make up on the spot or just have a bullet point list. Okay, I can speak about these 5 to 10 things each time. They ask me about communication or professionalism or what skill or something like that. And remember, at the end of the day, it is a conversation with a human being. Like, this person isn't like don't put that hierarchy. Just have a natural conversation with them. If someone asks in the chat, do if they ask any questions at the end for them, what should I say? Um, just have a natural conversation. Just be like, okay, how was your day? You know, what career are you doing? What specialty are you in? Are you a student or what's your role at the medical or dental school? Just have a conversation. Do some small talk. Um, and the thing to improve this to improve on this is because of our generation, right? We're all on phones, we're doom scrolling or doing whatever, and we're all antisocial. We're one of the most antisocial generations ever. Whenever you're, in the shop queuing up, whenever you're in an elevator, have that awkward conversation, do some small talk. It gets you comfortable with just speaking with humans. That's really important. And I think if you practice from now, just speaking with people in general and being more confident and more extroverted, even if you're an introvert, just go out your comfort zone because we are all human beings at the end of the day, and this will help with your interview preparation. After my interview preparation, and I think Mufti would say the same thing. We got more confident with our speaking and our train of thought as well. So do think about these things when you're going into interview preparation and the next few months of this season. Okay, so these are the six station types. Mufti, do you want to tell everyone about what the six different station types and more station types that we have?
Of course, it would be a pleasure. So, right now, we have broken down to you guys why are there interviews? What sort of skills do I need for interviews? How do I actually prepare for them? What are my next steps? We've covered the broad bulk of those questions that you guys have. But now you guys are probably thinking, okay, what are the interviews? What do I need to be aware of? Now, I've given you guys a list of six common station types. However, it's not uncommon to find yourselves doing nine stations with universities that have a higher capacity, or other universities that pick five stations maybe for you guys to have an attempt at, or maybe some universities that do two really large stations that are almost panel-like, right? So I'm going to be dissecting the station types and the structure of your interview one by one. So before we begin on this key concept, one thing I want to touch is what are the different types of interviews you can get. Now, there's two types of interviews. Do you guys know? Can I have in the chat what are the two main types of interviews? Let's see if you guys know. It's to do with the structure. MMI and panel. Brilliant. Yeah, MMI and panel. So, what's the difference between an MMI and panel interview? Anyone know what an MMI interview is? Six stations, yeah. MMIs is different people. MMI multiple. Yeah, brilliant. Amazing answers, guys. MMIs are multiple mini interviews. Essentially, they have 6 to 8 different rooms on average, usually. And in those rooms, there will be a timer. And most of the time, there will be an interviewer, and they will time you for 5 minutes to speak on a specific question. And they'll ask you questions, or they'll give you an activity, they'll give you an article, they'll give you a topic, they'll give you a graph, they'll give you a table, they'll give you an actor maybe, and they may be crying, and they'll just expect you to console them. Something, anything. There will be a task for you guys to attempt for 8 minutes or however many minutes. It can be even as low as 4 or as high as 10. And a buzzer will ring and they'll say, okay, guys, thank you. Let's move on to the next one. Then your 2 minutes reading time for the next station will begin and you will rotate and come back to the station that you started on and it's over. That is the structure of the MMI. Very nice and simple. Now, this can be done in person or online. So one thing I found is that in-person interviews were really common pre-COVID, but post-COVID, what we found was that a lot of universities started transitioning towards online interviews. Now, many have stayed online, however, many have transitioned back to in-person interviews. So you will find that the majority of universities do in-person interviews, okay? So you do have to travel there. So a big consideration I do tell people is if you can, try to get a hotel or try wake up early and be really prepared because you want to make the interview your day. The biggest tip I have for the day is start off and tell yourself, really mentally gaslight yourself, convince yourself that this is going to be my day. I'm going to do well, have a nice breakfast, get changed, get dressed, look nice, put on perfume, be well prepared for that interview, guys, okay? So that's one thing, that's one tip I'd give. Now, to break down the different key station types, the first most common station that people come up with is a motivation station. Now, they often ask you the very cliche question, why medicine? Why dentistry? And a lot of people, they get thrown off on this one because, yeah, we wrote down a personal statement, but how am I going to say the exact same thing to them in their faces? How am I going to come across as that? Now, you have one of two options. You can either be the person who, recites their personal statement word for word. They've done hifz of their personal statement and they just recite it, okay? And you can be the second person who, you know, is someone who goes onto multiple tangents. They come up with a different point and they go through something else. Maybe you want to give a point across that, oh, actually, in this work experience, I did this. So motivation stations can be that. Another thing that's tested on the personal statement could be, a key concept such as what wider reading have you done to show your emphasis on medicine? What wider reading have you done to show your interest in this career? So it could be something along the lines of, oh, I read on this topic, I did the supercurricular. That's where your supercurriculars come in. I've been harping on and on and on and on about supercurriculars. And what we've been saying there is that this is going to come back in the interviews to show that you're a multidimensional person, you're actually passionate about this degree. You got to talk about this in your motivation station. The next type of station is your role play station. In here, you'll be given an actor. Now, there's the traditional stereotype that it's just going to be a Breaking Bad news station that you'll be given a cancer patient and you have to tell them, look, bro, you've got cancer. That's not how it goes. It's not always going to be a cancer patient. Sometimes you may even get someone in your football team that, let's say you've got a trip to Spain and you're playing against Spain in a football team, and a member has to be excluded because maybe they didn't do well enough in the trials and they were really passionate about playing, then what happens, right? So really be aware that you won't just be getting asked questions in a clinical setting, rather it could be in a social setting. Maybe you have a friend who's felt they may be feeling down after a poor relationship or something along those lines. It can be really varied in the different types of questions you can get asked. Okay, guys? Cool. Next question type is the ethics type. Now, this is probably where most of the bulk of the knowledge comes in, okay? The ethics and hot topics type. This is where your learning comes in. You'll be learning about ethical topics such as transplantation, abortion, euthanasia. Okay, a quick run of hands, actually not quick run of hands, a quick idea in the chat if I can get from you guys. What are the 4 medical ethical pillars? Does anyone know? You need to know this for your interviews. Any idea? Justice, yeah, justice, autonomy, beneficence, and non-maleficence. Brilliant, guys. Justice, autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence. What are these different ethical pillars? Well done, guys. If you guys don't know this, don't worry. We'll have full webinars on this coming up soon. Right. These ethical pillars underpin the structure of your answers. Sometimes they'll give you a question. Abortion or abortion, are you pro-life or are you pro-choice? A lot of people say, the pro-choice argument is that it's the mother's right to choose, the presence of a baby. Will she conceive or will she not? Because that is the pro-choice perspective. And the pro-choice perspective places autonomy, which is the ethical pillar that says it's the patient's right to choose their own healthcare above all the other principles. However, people who are pro-life, they say, okay, yeah, you can have your autonomy, but we believe in non-maleficence. Do no harm. Don't kill a baby. And we also believe in beneficence, that it's good to promote the life of a baby. And also justice. The baby didn't do anything harmful to, be put out, essentially. So we support these ethical pillars. So it's usually a pillar versus another pillar. They'll get you to coincide between these 4 pillars, which is why it's so important for you guys to learn them, because there'll be a bit of disparity between the 2 of them. And just like that, you'll be expected to weigh up the pros and cons and give an answer. The 4th question, station type is hot topics. Hot topics is NHS stuff, like, I don't know, junior doctor strikes, the structure of GPs, waiting lists, ambulances, funding, Brexit, politics, new gene therapies, treating people due to infections or, diseases that are, taken in, or someone who is born genetically with a disease, things like that. Different ways of prioritizing patients. Hot topics are those. I'm not going to go into those, okay? For dentists, stuff like water fluoridation, UDAs, you want to think about private dentistry versus NHS dentistry, specialization, things like that. Then there's the miscellaneous section. Now, the miscellaneous section is quite big. There's a huge variety of things they can ask you. They can throw a wacky question at you. That's one example. They may ask you, how much does a mountain weigh? Like, they could ask you something like that. And imagine being asked on the spot how much a mountain weighs, right? You're going to have to come up with something creative off the top of your head to stand out, aren't you? So they can really throw you anything. They can even give you a question such as, let's say you have 2 people on a boat. One of them's an artist, another one's a scientist. And you only have one life jacket and the boat is about to sink. Who would you give the life jacket to? Things like that, okay? They'll throw anything at you. That can be a wacky question. Yeah, yourself, well done, mate. Okay, you can also get miscellaneous sections, right? Miscellaneous question types. And those ones are, it can be station types such as data analysis or group tasks. You can even get group tasks, okay? So you can be put in a group and they can see, are you the right balance between a leader and a team player? Or are you someone who overly takes charge, authoritative, maybe comes across as bossy? Or are you someone that's balanced within the team? So they look at these things. They may also look at your data analysis skills. So they'll give you a table telling you the efficacy of, I don't know, let's say a new weight loss pill was given and you measure the mean weight of a group of 1,000 adults tested over a period of time. They give you the standard deviation, the means, and they say, okay, guys, tell me, what do you guys think? Tell me, explain this data to me, explain the curve, explain the y-axis, the x-axis, and you'll be asked to walk them through it, a bit of the science behind it. So that's where your A-level biology comes in. And yeah, okay, guys, cool. Then you can get rest stations. Now, some universities, this is optional. Some universities have them, some don't. So they'll tell you in advance, guys, for that thing. Now, this is not meant to be, exhaustive. There are plenty of different station types. For dentistry, there's manual dexterity stations to which you'll be given a model and expected to do something. Some universities will expect you to, I don't know, do origami, give instructions of how to tie shoelaces, explain concepts to a younger child, really be able to work with your hands essentially, okay? So manual dexterity does come in. And yeah, so these are the main station types, okay? Cool.
Right. So before we move on to our Q&A panel, we just want to give you all a chance to scan the QR code to join our WhatsApp community. There are some of you who aren't on there. If you are on a phone, I will put the link in the chat. You can access our WhatsApp community on our Instagram, going on our link tree. You can also find it on our website as well. I've put the link in the chat. But do join our communities. It's a free community. Some people are having issues as well. So if you click on the community and you join, within the community, there's lots of different group chats. There's one for A levels, there's one for GCSEs, there's one for medical applicants, dental applicants, and one just a general one for interview preparation because it's interview season now. So do be sure to join this WhatsApp community. We have a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of mentors on there. We keep you guys updated with the next set of webinars because there's a lot of you here who are, from our community, but also outside our community. So make sure to join this because this is where you can find out a lot about what we do. Right, I'll give you guys a few seconds to scan the QR code. Right. Now, what's next? We have a bunch of free webinars coming up of the duration of the month. We're also going to be visiting a few schools over the next few weeks. Like Mufti said earlier, if you want us to visit your school, reach out to our Instagram at Medentors and DM us, please. We're organizing school visits across the country, mainly in the Midlands and the Northwest and London. We've also got our interview guide coming soon. And Mufti, if you want to tell everyone about our interview mastery course.
Right, guys. So a bit about the interview mastery course. So we have set up a course towards that's going to be starting very soon around November time. And this course is going to be covering everything, every stage of the interview process, every single possible question you could have, every idea, every concern that could be covered, how to answer different question types. And also, it's going to be very interactive. It's going to give you guys the perfect blend between live teaching and practice. So we'll explain the concepts and then you'll be put in your small groups and you'll be going through your practice, okay? As well as that, you'll be given a personal mentor and you can book 2 one-to-ones with them, okay? That is going to be university specific towards whichever universities you've chosen to apply to and get feedback sheets alongside that. As well as that, towards the end of the course, once you've soaked in all the knowledge and really immersed yourself in the experience, you've got that small group prep, you've had your academic family meetings, we're going to have the Medentors mock MMI experience, right, guys? And this is going to be a fully simulated mock MMI that's going to be using realistic, up-to-date questions that we have taken in from previously asked interview questions, as well as consistencies between all the different UK medical and dental schools specific for medicine and dentistry, okay? As well as that, you guys will be put in small groups within your medical cohort. So a lot of people from last year, I know that were part of the course, they met people that they're now studying medicine with, which is really cool, right, guys? So you'll be in this MMI experience within a small group as well as a mentor. We'll make the groups as university specific as possible. You can network with like-minded peers and really make a difference. And there will also be lots of tips about how to balance your time taking in. Okay, cool. Now, a bit about our team members. Like, there's a lot of successful people who have been in our team. And that's why we've got 4 out of 4 offer holders from a range of UK medical schools, right? And last year, we managed to achieve a 95% success rate. The average we showed you guys was around 30% for medicine, and for dentistry is 8%. Post-interview stage, the numbers they go up a little bit. So for dentistry, it's around 20%, and for medicine, it goes up to 40%. But that is still significantly lower than the 95% we had last year. Okay, so that is the structure of the course. So a lot of people are asking, is this course free or paid? There's 2 courses. The one on the previous slide is the free one that will be running from the WhatsApp community. This interview mastery course that the QR code sends you off to is our paid interview mastery course. It's at £135 for early bird offer, and it averages around to £6 an hour for all the different teaching available to you guys. So it's super high value for money. I saw courses that were being sold for like 500, 600, like 1K, and I was like, you do not need to be paying that much for interviews, okay? We aimed it to be as accessible as possible, and we've got widening participation discounts for you guys, which you can DM the admin account on the WhatsApp community to get more information about, guys, okay? And also alongside that, if you are worried about cost, because you know a lot of people, rightfully so, maybe, we do have adjustable payment plans available for you guys, so do take that into account. However, this mastery course will be going through everything in detail that you guys need to know, starting from November and finishing off up to when your interviews start. Right. Cool. And here are some testimonials we managed to get last year on the next slide. Okay, so these are many career leads at different schools across the UK. And yeah, so we have had really good reviews from different schools, different parents, different students, and it's really good to have helped such a community across the years. So thank you guys for your support as always. Now, on to probably the most anticipated part of the series. Your turn. Time to answer your questions. Right? Right. Wow. Questions are coming in like fire. Kareem, do you want to take the first one?
Yeah, let's moderate because we don't have time to answer every single question, but we will answer I think the most important ones. Um, Someone's asked about Liverpool Med interviews. Listen, some interviews are hard, some interviews are easy, but the thing is that the harder ones might have post-interview success rates that are higher. Really, just prepare as much as you can. And there's going to be scary stories here and there, but if you're confident and you prepare and you practice, you should be fine. But with specific interview questions, it's probably best to ask on our WhatsApp community. So, what are some of the most weirdest slash most difficult questions you've heard for a med interview? Mufti, that's yours.
What are the most, one thing that's really crazy. I never got a wacky question. A lot of people, they're really scared about, oh, how much does a mountain weigh or something along those lines. They think they'll get hit by that, but I never really got hit by one. But I do know people that have. So the weirdest, most difficult question I got asked of one time was something along the lines of, a lot of people say that medicine is an art instead of a science. Explain why medicine can be seen as an art. And on the spot, I had to tell them the artistic nature of medicine. And it's something that I'd never really thought about before. And it's something that wasn't in my little interview cheat sheet, which is why I always tell people to never, biblically follow your interview cheat sheet, okay? Because that's not what you should be doing. Instead, what you should be looking at is following your plan, what's in your mind, where everything is. Really get an idea for those sorts of things, because you are very likely going to get asked something that you haven't typed down. Yeah, there'll be things that you haven't typed down, that you haven't memorized, that you'll be given. Okay, so I'd highly recommend you guys to be prepared for any sort of question in the station. Be open-minded, and the biggest tip I have, always ask them, can I have a minute to think? And they'll appreciate that. Too many people think that they're going to be judged for the time they take to think about an answer, or they'll be seen as someone who's not cognitively fast enough if they, can't answer a question directly. But that's not the case at all. It really isn't. Because if you can take time out to think about your answer, it shows them you're someone who's collected, calm, takes their time to structure their thinking, then gives something that is of credible quality instead of someone who jumps straight into an answer, because they'll appreciate that from you. It's expected, actually, that when you get hit with a tricky question, for you to ask for a minute out, or not a minute out really, but just 30 seconds or so to think about your answer. And it'll really make you stand out from that side of things. Okay, cool. Loads of questions that are coming in. Let me just see.
Someone's
Um,
asked, how do we prepare for group tasks? It's sort of hard to prepare for that because you can't get in groups. Maybe you can do mock MMIs in person, but generally with group tasks, you don't know what to expect. Very few unis do it, by the way, because it's sort of harder to mark. But the unis that do it, I'd say, you gotta have the balance of taking sort of the lead, but then also hearing out what everyone else in the team has to say. And you need to speak as well. If you're not heard, if you're just that quiet kid in the corner, in the interview, you're not giving the chance really for the interviewer to give you any marks.
yeah, brilliant. Okay, next question. And this is a really relevant one. What tips would you give to someone who suffers from anxiety in an MMI? Right. Now, this is something that almost every single person taking an MMI struggles with. I remember the first time I had to sit down in front of someone and give an answer, right? the first time I practiced MMIs, because we had practice MMIs in my school, right? I was shaking visibly. Like I had no idea what to say because I was only, I don't know, a month into my MMI prep. And so my ideas of all the topics weren't as straightforward. And on top of that, I didn't know how to communicate my ideas across to someone sitting in front of me because they were asking me a question or someone I didn't know. It's not like it's your friend. You're really being put on the spot. And on top of that, there's a timer, there's the stressed environment. I felt stressed out and I didn't know how to say it and I was visibly shaking. My biggest tip, it will come with time. Put yourself out there. Get involved. There's going to be lots of webinars right now. Be the first to put your hand out and, really try to get engaged with whatever we have to offer. Ask questions on the group chat. Structure your answers. Ask your friends and family to, sit down, time you for 5 minutes and practice interview questions. Load up a bank of interview questions. You can find them on UCAT people. We're going to be launching our interview questions soon and time yourself with answers. Ask your school teacher actually if she can stay back for 10-15 minutes after school and practice questions with you because it's your teacher that you'll be a bit more professional than with your friends. A lot of people they sit with their friends and they just start laughing and messing around. Fair enough, that's understandable. So ask your teachers, ask a doctor, ask a dentist, or ask a friend who's a medical student, or ask someone who you expect yourself to be more professional around. Really put yourself out there, okay? Really give yourself these questions and put yourself in a situation to where you have to hone in the inner professionalism that you have and get your points across, okay? With anxiety, it happens. Another huge tip I have for MMI anxiety, now this is huge. Make sure you're well prepared on the day. If it means getting a good night's rest, having a nice breakfast, and then most importantly, when you get to the interview stage, they're not just going to straight away throw you an MMIs, they're going to give you a debriefing. And in that debriefing, there'll be a 15 minutes time where you'll be putting your little MMI batch of other applicants. Everyone in that batch is going to be super nervous. One of the unis I applied to was Leicester. And what we did in the interviews was that they gave us a little debrief and they actually gave us a tour of the medical school, which is really nice of them. Yeah. A really nice tour of the university. And what I got to do was speak with many of the applicants who were applying there, really strike up conversations, be out there. One crazy thing is everyone at the start is going to be super quiet. No one's going to say a word. And that's because us as humans, we don't like to put ourselves out in these situations. But one thing you'll find is that, if you're the first to strike a conversation, the person who you're striking up a conversation with will be so grateful you did it because they were just waiting for someone to talk. It's not that everyone by default is unsociable. It's more of that everyone's waiting for someone to say something so you can initiate a conversation, if that makes sense. So really be that person and it will make your life and whoever else is at the MMIs a lot easier. Yeah. So make small talk if you can. Right.
I think there's a lot of specific questions like how do I break bad news? How do I do station questions? We have an interview series of webinars for free. And we also have the course as well, which includes the personal mentorship and the group teaching and the lectures and also the live practice with us as well and the mock MMI. So we have these opportunities available. But I think, a lot of the questions are similar. Some of you are asking, how do I, what first thing you can do is to start is this webinar and you're here and you've been successful sort of attending the webinar and engaging and that's really good from you guys. The next thing to do now is keep engaging with the webinars, but go away. Think about what we said today, how to prepare, how to start preparing, in the sense of okay, go read articles, go learn about hot topics and ethics and all these things. Go buy a book like this, a book for interviews. Go read some articles, go watch some videos, do as much as possible. We've got an interview guide coming out in about 2 weeks' time, and hopefully that should help a lot of you as well. So I think we will leave it at that. Thank you all for sort of joining us today. It's been really, really nice to see you all. Any final thoughts from yourself, Mufti, before we finish off?
Yeah, I just want to say, guys, it's absolutely brilliant to see you guys. And if anyone does feel anxious after this, seeing, the complexity of what you have to face and balance that alongside your A levels, it can be difficult at times. But remember, you've got that Christmas term break as well to really hone down and put the foot on the pedal with this A level prep as well as the interview prep. So you really got to put yourself in a routine. And on top of that, another thing you have to do is take it one step at a time. There is not an insane amount of knowledge you have to have. A lot of the wider reading you were supposed to do should have been covered in your super curricular as well. And a lot of it is just your communication. It's your verbal and non-verbal communication that you're getting across. So don't take it one step at a time. Don't be too nervous about it. And the concept of nervousness and coming across as apprehensive, that will, I promise you, it will come over time. You will naturally be a more confident speakers as you begin to put yourself out there and practice with the questions, okay? And remember, you guys are always ahead of the train because you guys are, in here, sitting here in the webinar, really getting ahead of the game, ahead of the curve today. So don't feel like you're being left behind, okay? And there'll be lots of opportunities for you guys to practice over the next couple of months. Keep engaged on the WhatsApp community and you'll see. Yeah?